Renters' Rights Act and why it's the biggest change that landlords have seen in decades. My name's Jack, I'm the director of My Property Organiser, and I'm just going to run you through what the Renters' Rights Act means, what changes it's going to make, and more importantly, how it's affecting you as an investor and as a landlord. Because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of talk out there in the news in terms of it's going to sort of dramatically change things for landlords, which it is, but more focused on the negatives. And of course, there are negatives to it. There's no getting around that. It is a big change, but it's not as negative as sometimes what people and the press make out to be. So what I want to do is I just want to cover sort of what the changes are, what they mean, how they benefit you, and how to sort of really avoid those changes as well, and avoid the sort of negative press and the negative impacts that it's designed to really bring in. So let's talk about the sort of changes. So the big one everyone knows about, Section 21, that's being abolished. That was everyone's safety net for many years. You had a tenant you didn't like or you wanted to get out, within 2 months, Section 21, they're out. That's been abolished. So that's obviously that's a pretty big one, and one that is sort of worrying most people. However, they are changing Section 8 so that you can still get tenants out, guys. Don't think it's suddenly that you can't ever boot a tenant out. You can, it's just a case of you have to have the proper grounds in order to evict. We're talking rent arrears, not looking after the property in the right manner, and various other things. So they're changing Section 8 to give you the ability to still evict, but under the correct grounds, which, if you ask me, I actually think is pretty fair. It's not fair for you to get someone in, 6 months down the line, you decide, oh, do you know what, I want it back now, I want to sell it straight away, or whatever it may be. You might just go, I don't like them anymore, they've annoyed me, they've upset me, and I want to get them out. So they're just trying to abolish, as I said, the wrong and unlawful ways of getting people out. The fixed term tenancy agreements are being abolished. Everything is going over to a rolling contract. So there's no 12 months up front being allowed. There's no 12 months fixed rate contracts. Now again, there's positives and negatives to this. The positive is the fact that there is, in some respects, a little bit more flexibility for both parties. But again, if you're getting the right tenant, and you've got a good quality tenant in the property, you don't want to get rid of them anyway. So you actually don't mind them being on a rolling contract. They're staying in there for a longer period of time. It, again, isn't as big a change. It's not really a negative. If you're buying an investment property, the reality is you want it rented out. You want someone in there long term. And 9 times out of 10, if you're buying in the right area and you've got the right quality property, people want to stay in there long term. So you just go from a 12-month contract normally, and they'll go another 12 months. Now it's just a constant rolling contract, which inevitably, and actually in actual fact, for those of you who don't know, a lot of contracts that are originally done on 12 months end up being rolling contracts anyway. They automatically go over unless you tie them in. But as I said, it's always a case of that it's got to benefit you, and it's got to benefit the actual the tenant that's in there. One of the other things, guys, I said we've covered the Section 8, but is Awaab's law. Can never pronounce that one quite correctly. But that's a law in regards to massively around compliance. And I'll sort of explain a little bit more about what it means, but that's a big change when it comes to compliance. And if you ask me, completely lawful, and I actually agree with that. The other big one is tenant and rent increases. Now, again, we all want as much rent as possible as an investor. That's something that we're investing for a reason. We're providing a home. We want the biggest return. Of course we do. However, what the rent increase is stopping is simply a case of that you're just overcharging excessively. I've seen it many a time over the many years I've been doing this and investing in property and advising on the investment property, that people are trying to get extortionate rents out of some tenants. And sort of, in some respects, playing on some people's lack of knowledge and things like that for the area, which again, could you argue it's a downside to an investor? Yes. Is it morally the right thing to do? Yeah, it is. So a lot of these changes, in my opinion, are more moral changes. And if you're the right type of person, the right type of investor, and you manage your investment property in the right way, again, a lot of these aren't anything to be really worried about. And then that leads on to bidding wars has also been abolished. Again, I've been in that before. I've gone to rent property out myself in London, and you go and get sort of 2 or 3 other people who are overseas. They're going and paying 2-3 years up front, all cash, and are willing to pay vastly over the odds because they simply don't care. So is that the wrong thing to do? Probably yes. Now it's just a bit more fair. And yeah, again, it's just morally stands at the right point. But overall, guys, I think the key with all this Renters' Rights Act is you as a landlord need to know, and again, I'm just touching on various sort of changes here. You need to go through every single change You need to ensure you're on top of your compliance. And now it's more imperative than ever that you've got a good quality management company. But not only that, you've got eyes yourself. Best believe if there's an issue that hasn't been picked up, you can't be picking your phone up to your letting agent after you've received fines from whoever it may be, HMRC, it could be, any one of these people that could potentially fine you within the property game for compliance and missed things. You can't phone up your letting agent and get them to pay it because they didn't tell you. You still need to have eyes on how your portfolio is doing. So if you've got one, very easy. You can probably do a lot of it from memory. If you've got 2, 3, 4, 10, 50, 100, not only do you want a letting agent, but you need some eyes on that property portfolio. You need to have a way of keeping up to date with compliance, knowing what's going on, and also just spotting opportunities. I speak to many investors who've got large portfolios, and they all say the same thing. They're extremely reactive. They're reactive at the end of the year. They're filing their accounts. They don't realize what's come out. They didn't realize that, oh God, I've got a 10-year-old property and the boiler's starting to go. All these things you need to be aware of when these costs are going to come up. Otherwise, they are going to hit you. But as I said, going back to the Renters' Rights Act, it's just imperative that you know that you're compliant. You can provide all the documents at a drop of a hat, because that's another thing HMRC are trying to bring in at the moment, that if you can't supply a document, they're going to hit you with fines. You need to make sure all your documents are stored in one place, you're on top of your compliance, and you're using a good quality letting agent. And if you do that and you're renting out the right property in the right area, I promise you, you're not going to have a problem. But as I said, guys, we're going to do more educational stuff on this, on various different topics. If you do want to have a chat and kind of ask any questions, I've been doing this a long time in terms of the sort of property. I'm both sides of the coin as an agent and also as an investor myself. I'm always open to have a chat with anyone. But yeah, I'll catch you soon, guys, and just keep a lookout for more content. Thanks, guys.